What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we have a 2-for-1 special. We are about to do a tour in Randleman, North Carolina at a good friend of mine named Scott. He owns not one, but two Nautilus fitness centers in Randleman, North Carolina and Asheboro, North Carolina. So today I'm gonna take you to a tour, and this is super inspirational because Scott's original location has been in business this year for 25 years. But this location that I'm at, we purchased everything in 2019. We were gonna open in March of 2020 and COVID hit. Everybody knows what happens. So when we opened the doors, there was a lot of trying times at this location. So if you are a struggling gym owner, you are about to hear from the man himself, because I want you to hear inspirational stories that things can happen and make a negative turn into a positive, because this is a super, super good story. All right, follow me. Let's go in.
Bud. Hey, dude.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. So everyone, I have my good friend Scott here, and I want him to tell us a little bit of how he got into the gym space, when he opened, and how long he's been doing this.
Okay. So I decided to open a gym in November of '99. I had worked with Ric Flair before, was one of his managers of the gym in Durham, North Carolina. Just fell in love with it, was passionate about helping people, just really liked it, did that for a couple of years, decided if I was gonna do it, let's go ahead and do it for myself. So we opened in November of '99 in Asheboro, and then we just opened up here 3 years ago in Randleman.
I met Scott, I don't even know how many years ago, long time ago.
10 years ago?
Probably, selling him piece here and there or whatever. And Scott's Asheboro gym, I would call always killed it, very successful. And then I would say they're turned into times where it probably got stagnant, Scott?
Yeah, it stalled. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely stalled out.
And I'll tell the biggest thing, the reason I want people to hear this is other competition moves into your area. And you never know, and I've dealt with it at my own gym. So I like people to hear this, that when competition moves in the area, you have to level up yourself. Well, Scott approaches me in probably, I don't know, middle to beginning of 2019 and says, hey, I have a good opportunity to open up where we are in Randleman. And I'm like, great, let's do this. And so Scott gets everything going. And Scott, when did we purchase equipment?
I would say it was in February.
Okay.
Yeah, right before COVID hit.
Okay.
Because
I think you were there in, I think November is when the package came in of 2019.
Yeah, that's not,
Give or take.
Yeah.
But regardless of the fact, 2020 hits, and you were gonna open what, Scott, March?
Yeah, we were gonna open towards the end of March, and I remember they shut the gym down in Asheboro on the 25th.
Okay, yep.
Because our billing goes out on the 26th. So
Correct.
I immediately took a hit right away.
Oh.
And then this equipment was sitting up here for probably a good 3 weeks, and then they decided to completely shut us down. That meant I could not open here towards the end of March, 1st of April when I wanted to. This gym actually ended opening at the end of July.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep. So
several months before. And what I want to stress to everybody during this time, this man has financially spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's a very stressful time, not just for him, but for me, because I have a lot of clients, but I become friends with these people. And you know, when you're closed and you have no control to be open, me and Scott did not know, is the location are they gonna swarm in and swarm us? Is it gonna be dead? Are people gonna be scared to come? We didn't know.
yeah, so we opened about 3 weeks prior to when we were supposed to open from governor restrictions. And it just was, I needed to either open or I just wasn't sure what was gonna happen financially, because I was just losing on both ends, Asheboro as well as
We're
here.
talking often during this time, And this is a point when a lot of gyms had already opened back, but the CrossFits, people's doing parking lot workouts. Basically, people were beating the doors down to get back in gyms. And Scott financially needed to open the doors, point blank, period.
I think it was the toughest time for gym owners than
100%.
ever before, because small privately owned gyms like myself, we just didn't know what to do. Should we open? Should we stay closed? There was other gyms that were opening that was affecting our business. For me here, I didn't have any members. So, the equipment had been sitting for 3 months. I was paying the lease here. And finally, last week, I think there was 10 days left in July, I decided to pull the trigger, go ahead and open. We immediately signed up 250 people. And so signed up 250 people in 10 days.
Daniel, feel me? Cold chills. When I get things like this and calls and texts, this is when I'm talking to people, like I'm talking to Scott often, feeling not only relief, because when I set up a club, I can't tell him how it's going to do 100%, but I knew we built a badass club, and I knew he had the right people. And one thing I'll tell about Scott's gym, he's had, since I met him, the most amazing employees always, who are like family to him. And now I always feel like we're a family. So it's important to me that when somebody opens, I kind of take pride in if they do well or not. I don't want to see him fail.
Yeah. So when we opened and we signed up those 250 members in 10 days, I knew we had first had the market. Two, we hit a home run with the 100%. Package that we put together. Obviously, with it being a new market, being 15, 20 minutes away from my other location in Asheboro, just wasn't sure what the city of Randleman would do, because it's not a big city. I mean, I think you're talking 5,000 people, 5,500 people. And after those first 10 days, I felt like, okay, we're going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? So it took us a while to get back on our feet, but the numbers just continue to increase month after month after month. And just what the gym did, and I think Steve had a huge part of that, as far as just, I actually, one of the first times in my life, I just kind of sat back and let him put it together as far as the package deal.
All right, so at this point, Scott, because me and him will talk all day, let's walk around real quick. Let's show off some of the gym. And Scott, how many square foot is this location?
7,500.
Okay. We done a lot of equipment. Actually, let's walk around this way, Scott.
Obviously, you can see some of the newer pieces. But one thing that I like that Steven recommended was putting some lockers out here in the lobby area, which has been really helpful for us, because a lot of people don't go into the locker room. They just use these lockers out here.
That's a new type thing that's going on.
This row of equipment is kind of interesting, because this is the new Rogers pieces and Arsenal pieces. If you recall, Steven, last year I told you, so we just made that big choice in Asheboro. You said, Scott, let's sprinkle in about 6 or 8 pieces. Like, Randleman's still new enough at this point where we didn't have to redo everything.
So everybody knows, Randleman at this point was killing it. It's busy, but Scott didn't want to lose momentum. So I always preach this to my clients. I'm like, hey, just what he said, let's sprinkle in some pieces. So he did not need to do this, but the busier the gym got, I knew that we needed a few more things in here. So that's when I told Scott, we added some of these pieces, which I know they're used all the time.
Like the pendulum squat. You said we were one of like 5 or 6 gyms in North Carolina that had it. So
at the time, nobody had this piece.
There's certain pieces that I'm not that familiar with, even though I've been in the industry for 30 years. That's where your expertise has been really helpful. I can get feedback from members, but I just need to obviously trust trust people like you and say, sprinkle in this, Scott, this is what it's going to do to your membership.
So we put in the 3-way row, basically the whole line of Rogers, the Arsenal. I love these hoist pieces, all the plate load. That's a lot different. We wanted to be different than his location that you'll see in Asheboro. If you remember, that was the biggest thing. I wanted the equipment to be total opposite.
One thing that I think is really important that I think Steve nailed it here is the flow. Like, it has to flow. What I mean by that is you walk in, you see the cardio on the left-hand side that we'll get to, but over here you can see some of the free motion pieces, and it just flows really well into the free weight pieces. And then as you get back here, you can see that we chose to put in a couple of power racks, squat racks, Smith machine over in the corner. Here's another great piece. It's a hack squat. It was something Steve knew we were missing. This is something that we added last year, and it's been a game changer for us. But one thing that I think is really important too is just the lighting and the openness that Steve and I have talked to each other about a number of times. One thing that you want to try to create over the 30 years of experience in the fitness industry is you want natural light, and then you want good lighting as well, okay? So, I don't know, Stephen, you've obviously got experience as well.
One thing that I want to stress that I'm thinking that has nothing to do with anything right now, I want you to look around and you can film how clean this gym is. It's super clean. It is so important. I feel like, especially since COVID, it is very, very important to keep the gym, I don't want to say immaculate, but as clean as possible.
I think that's, what comes to mind when you mention that is who you have on as a team. Obviously it starts with you as an owner, but then you've got to surround yourself with the right people. You got to have the right manager, and you got to have people on your staff, especially with small gyms like mine, privately gyms, or just trying to compete against Planet Fitnesses in the big box stores. You've got to surround yourself with the right people.
I completely agree. Utilization of space is key. If you see how he put the jungle gym back here right off the wall, it is super important. When we sprinkled in a few pieces, we actually adjusted, if you remember, Scott, that whole line, all the free motion, the T-bar row, where there's still, if somebody wanted to do walking lunges through here, placement of equipment is so key to where at 5:30 in the afternoon when the gym is packed, you've got room, and this gym still flows so well. And we're in the middle of the afternoon. We purposely timed this to where hopefully the gym wouldn't be too busy, but there's people everywhere in here, and it's still no problem to work out.
That's one of the things I've enjoyed working with you the most is I need to focus on being the gym owner, okay? Your expertise is the equipment that we need as far as gym owners, but as far as the layout and how it flows as well, because you can picture it, whereas I go back 30 years.
Oh, I know.
This is where you put the free weights, this is where you put the cardio, this is where you put your machines, and it doesn't flow.
You're gonna see when we get to Asheboro, the nightmare we had on our hands, because not only is Asheboro busy, but tell them that Asheboro was not a new thing, from the flooring to everything.
Right.
We had to completely lay out Asheboro when we redone it. So I'm excited to show that on camera, because I visioned it in my head, but I truly didn't know how it was gonna function.
Yeah.
And talk about, Scott, real quick, amount of members and stuff like that at this location for the square footage.
So our goal here was to get to 1,000 members. I mean, based on the numbers, what I thought this gym would do, what kind of numbers we had to be successful. Our goal was to get to 1,000 members. Well, we reached 1,000 members in the first 6 months.
It's amazing.
And I think a couple of reasons. One, we don't have the competition like some of the bigger cities, like in Asheboro. We've got Planet Fitness, Total Fitness, we've got the YMCA, we've got Workout Anytime, and the CrossFit place. Here, we've got one other facility that we compete against. But I think a lot of it is just due to this market was right for a facility. But it's the gym, it's the fitness center, it's the environment that we've created, it's the equipment that we've chosen, and the people that I'm surrounded by just make this place what it is. Okay, so if you're a gym owner and you're thinking about opening a gym, your location is huge. To me, I think location, your name.
And Scott, talk about the name real quick, if you will.
So Nautilus is one of the oldest manufacturers of fitness
100%.
Arthur Jones was the inventor of it. Nautilus has been around for a long time. I think there's like 450 locations still. Nautilus
could be,
but
I'm not exactly sure the amounts.
We're not affiliated with one another, so we're privately owned. The reason why I kept the name Nautilus is everybody associates Nautilus with fitness.
Correct.
Even though you may not see a ton of Nautilus equipment in here, I think your name is extremely important.
And back in the day, I would probably say Nautilus in that time period of you opening was one of the top dogs in the industry. Probably still is. I still sell a ton of Nautilus. Nautilus owns several different brands now. But my point is, back in the day, everybody, if you said the word Nautilus, they just associated it with fitness. So it's prime because you want somebody to think, hey, that's a gym.
Yeah. So you can see we put the dumbbells back here. You got your utility benches, just some other pieces like the shoulder press, the hammer strength pull down barbells. But if you now start to look down this way, you can just see how well the gym flows. Okay, so Now we're beginning to get into the cardio area.
Scott will ask me periodically through the year, hey, Steven, is there a piece that's come out, for instance, the glute drive? There were certain things that Scott's always, right now, if I told Scott, hey, we need to add this piece in Randleman because I see it's missing, Scott's all about it because he knows it is gonna not only bring people in, but building a culture within a gym and making people happy and making them think that you're not just pocketing the money and you're constantly putting back. People don't realize what it costs to keep a place clean, to keep it cool temperature, the power bills, things like that. So it's all about adding value because sometimes it's hard to bring in more customers. But if you can maintain baseline of what I call your customer base, and that's, Scott, to me, what you've done over the past 3+ years.
There's two things that really stood out to me after, developing our relationship was I have to let my pride go. Okay, a lot of small gym owners think they know what they're doing, but they may know how to run a gym, but when it comes to laying the equipment out and picking, choosing the equipment, you've got to let somebody like yourself do that because that's what your expertise is. And the second thing is I just, trusting people, trusting yourself, trusting my staff that they're going to do the same thing. You can't, now owning 2 gyms, I can't be in 2 places at one time. So I have to trust the process.
Sure.
Surround myself with the right people and just put faith and trust in them.
And this is a very much family-owned gym, just like my gym. And like I know when people come in and out the door, you don't get that vibe like, Scott, what's up? That's the type gym. You just really don't get that in corporate America. And I truly think that's what separates the mom and pop gyms with having relationships built because I'm a relationship person and a longevity person. I want to do business with Scott for the next 20 years, 30 years, whatever. Or maybe Scott retires and his son takes it over. I still want to have those relationships because I'm still doing business with some of the same people that my father done business with. And that's just amazing to me. You don't see that loyalty much.
Something else that stands out now that you're talking about this is you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about how we pick certain pieces that you and I like.
Oh.
Instead of looking at the masses and what does your members are like, what's more important. And I used to do what you and I just talked about, which was I picked certain pieces of equipment that I wanted to work out on.
Me too.
It's not about me, it's about
I'm guilty. And I always tell people, if you watch my stories or my videos, I had personally a not super successful gym for several years. And when I learned to what Scott said, take my pride out of the equation and look around at my clientele and say, okay, 95% of the gym's gonna use this piece, not my 5% of friends. That's what I need to buy at this time. Now, if you had 50,000 square foot and you can afford to fit whatever, hey, maybe Scott puts in what he wants, but not necessary all the time.
Well, I think that's what it's made our relationship work is the fact that, and we'll talk about this more in Asheboro, but was not like just replacing everything.
Sure.
Just pick in certain areas and get the biggest bang for your buck. What you'll see if you look close enough, we've got Life Fitness, we've got Precor. As I was just telling you about incorporating the pieces and the brands that I like, Steven actually talked me into doing not just Precor, but Life Fitness. And what I've realized in the 3.5 years that I've done that here is you've got members, some that like things like Precor, others like Life Fitness just for small reasons, but it's nice to be able to accommodate and actually do 2 different brands versus having one full area of Precor.
One thing I do want to say is I always tell people like this, just in world in general, this is not just gym equipment. You got Ford, Chevy, Dodge people. My father will argue to the death of him, he's a Chevy guy. Bar none. So my point is, there's nothing wrong with the Ford, Ford guy. So that's why I say give people choices. Back in the day when people were building gyms, they went with one manufacturer and literally bought all Nautilus. Nothing wrong with that either. But to me, the world has got so many choices now. Give the people what they want, give them choices. I know at the beginning of the video, I told you that we were doing a 2-for-1 special. So I'm gonna take you to what I call the OG Nautilus, which started in 1999. And Scott's coming on 25 years this year in November. And then I'm gonna take you there, we're gonna show you that. And Scott, I'm gonna let talk about numbers and about what's happened since we redone that location.
Okay, guys, so we have just reached just got to the Ashburn location. This is the location that I opened in November of '99. As you'll see as you come in, this gym's a little bit older school. It does have 14,500 square feet, so it's about twice the size of the gym in Randleman that you just came from. And like I said, we opened in November of '99. So when we opened Randleman, I invited Steven and his wife to come down here and take a look at the facility and get his ideas, just because we had such a good July. If you remember, I had told you we signed up 250 people in the last 10 days of July. That was just right after COVID. Wanted to get Steven down here, his wife down here, just to get his thoughts on what we could do to take it up a notch here.
What I want to tell everybody about this gym, so me and my wife Amber come to the gym, and Scott really already had a good thing going, very busy, things like that. But one thing I realized, I'm like, hey, Scott, we need to add some of the newer stuff, but still kind of hardcore to the gym to kind of give it that new vibe. And the biggest thing, Scott did not have, which is funny, this was a nightmare for me and my guys, but Scott did not have an actual jungle gym in the facility.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why not, Scott?
I think it was just lack of knowledge.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And I had always purchased equipment, like when we opened, everything was brand new, it was easy. And then over 10 years, obviously my equipment started to age, and I would just do, you know, if I wanted to replace a circuit, but I just never saw the benefit of having
I got you.
a whole jungle gym or multi.
So I come down here, kind of storm a game plan. We're also at the point that Randleman's doing really well, and Scott, me and him discussed this earlier off camera. Scott said that, Steven, I would have let you redo this whole gym. But I come in and I was like, Scott, I don't think we need to change everything. I like the old school feel. This is the kind of gym.
This is where you earn my trust. I mean, you and I have known each other for 10 years. And like you just said, you were willing to, you could have come in here, said, Scott, hey, look, let's spend $500,000, revamp this whole thing. But the first thing you said to me was, Scott, I think for $175,000 to $200,000, we can really make this a different place and make it a game changer.
Well, here's the thing, and I want everybody to say this, and I'm talking from, you know, my heart. My dad raised me, I've said this on camera before, take chicken shit, make it chicken salad. You don't always have to change the whole thing. Scott had great bones. Everything was in good condition. The benches were just older. So I'm like, hey, let's add to what we've got and do this somewhat, it's going to be expensive, but somewhat affordably, but see what happens. And Scott left it up to me to do that. Honestly, Scott, you didn't really even give me equipment list on this gym.
No.
Scott had some key things that he wanted. So we came in here, and let's continue walking. So you guys kind of see how much cardio Scott has. We're now, I would say, Scott, and you'll probably agree with me, over the past 5 years, cardio, we're actually phasing out of a lot of clubs, the amount of cardio.
Yeah.
There's not really a sense anymore. My own gym used to have around 40 pieces, and I think I'm down to like 32, 33.
One thing that I think you were successful with in Randleman is now you can see what I was talking about. This is what I purchased before. This is all pre-core. All my treadmills, all my ellipticals, bikes, my AMTs, everything's pre-core. So you don't have that variety that we have in Randleman. We don't have that here. And so that's one of the things that I picked up on some of the members that have the dual membership. They like the variety of stuff that we have in Randleman. As you see, this is where we go into the strength training equipment. You're going to see some Nautilus pieces. We talked about Nautilus a little bit in Randleman, but you know, obviously you'll see much more of the strength pieces associated with the Nautilus brand.
Scott had a really old circuit. And so first thing we done was put him in a new circuit.
What's up there?
And we went back with Nautilus because he's Nautilus. That's why I wanted to go back with Nautilus. But this is where Scott explained the floor situation of this gym and what we were kind of running into. When you retrofit a gym, this gym had a lot of quirks, I would call it.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't like about the gym was we had a women's section and it was just kind of cut up. Whereas when I opened this gym in November of '99, there had been a gym in here prior to us. It was Ashburn Health and Fitness. They had a pool, they had a jacuzzi. So one of the obstacles that we had here was the difference in as far as the flooring. You can see where the flooring kind of drops down. It was challenging for us to navigate through that.
Scott's like, hey, I want you guys to do the install. I'll have some people there to help. And I'm like, okay, I got you. And I've been here before. I normally should have measured. Daniel, if you'll film that back door right there, double doors. I'm like, oh, Scott, no problem. We can probably get this done a couple hours. Oh boy, couple days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And nothing, this big jungle gym we purchased would not go through the door.
Yeah.
So everything had to be disassembled. Sometimes things happen that you can't plan for. You could call it my fault, Scott's fault, whatever, but we got it done. By rearranging the facility and adding to these things, we turned his gym from a good gym, in my opinion, to a great gym. And this is what I want to get into. So,
but I think, Stephen, when you sold me the package, what you had in mind, you said, Scott, when you and I met the very first time, you wanted to make this piece right here the centerpiece.
100%.
And then you built everything around it.
Yes.
We talked about flow and random, and the way you made this the centerpiece and you threw everything in around it, even from small things that you discussed with me was, like if you see over in the corner, the cable crossovers. You wanted to have a cable crossover. Obviously, we got one on this this multi-piece.
Put the other one in the
corner and one over here.
One in the middle.
Just to spread your people out. So now everybody was, like, you know how people get around the dumbbell area. They just kind of all navigate to it.
Daniel, one thing that we done basically from here, this whole side, everything you see was rearranged at one point. From the Rogers pieces being in the very back there, the benches were similar, but what he said was, as far as the cables, a lot of people will put all their cables for some reason in like the same spot. I don't exactly know, maybe that's an old school thing, but I'm all about, if you've got 100 people in the facility at once, if you can make them all divided up to where everybody feels comfortable, that's the name of the game. That's what I'm implementing in not only my gym, Scott's gym, but anybody I work with. So here, the flow is laid out so much better. And this gym, Scott, tell them like the numbers of this gym, meaning this gym at one point, I think, had over 2,000 members.
Yeah, we had over 2,000 members at one point, and then I think we honestly got so comfortable with what we had, and we were doing fine. But after what I saw with what you did in Randleman, I knew we needed to do something different here.
Sure.
But I wasn't on board with spending that $500,000, what I thought it was going to take to make happen. But because you coming in, taking a look at it, coming up with the plan that you had, it allowed us to go from, because I'm a numbers guy, so we were seeing about 150 to 175 people per day. And once you said to me, you said, Scott, I think we could make a huge difference spending $150,000 to $200,000. I was like, I kind of questioned that. I thought, I was here again thinking $500,000 to get it
Sure.
done. Well,
because it's a big club, guys. So
right.
Scott's been doing this 25 years, worked in the business longer than that.
Yeah.
So he knows what it costs. Go ahead,
but I
Scott.
think to even that $150,000 to $200,000 is still a major decision.
100%.
And you have to, obviously you've got to have faith in yourself, but you got to trust in you that the process is going to work. And it's played out for us. It's played out just like you said. I mean, you were hoping for me that we would get a return on our investment. Worst case scenario, 2 or 3 years down the road.
That's what we were hoping.
For us, I mean, we've killed it. I mean, it's just the new equipment has brought a lot of members back that didn't leave necessarily because they were unhappy. They were just bored with the stuff that we had. So some of the pieces were 12, 15 years old, and I knew it was time to make a change, but I just wasn't comfortable with that decision because I thought it was going to require a lot bigger investment. So, guys, one thing that you've probably picked up on already, we left the Randleman location, and that's a newer facility. We've put a lot more focus on, the environment, the ceiling, just the atmosphere with the lighting. Here you can kind of see the environment's completely different. I'd say it's that old school environment that a lot of us are used to. It's interesting because I'll get members from both locations. A lot of them like the new style, but even a lot of the younger crowd, they like the old school atmosphere. And so it's just been an interesting year and a half since we've done it, and the numbers obviously speak for themselves.
So I want to bump into him. This is what I love because he don't disclose this to most people. And I hope he don't get mad at me for saying this, but I get a phone call, me and him talk often, and I get a phone call, and I cannot guarantee success when I tell somebody, hey, spend $100,000, this is gonna, there's so many factors, guys, that play a role in what's your staff like, what's your culture like within the gym, what's the owner like of the club, whatever it is. But Scott calls me, shot me a text, I think, and said, hey, want to show you something, and then gets on the phone with me. 22 tax return to 23 tax return.
Yeah, so again, your goal was to get a return on our investment in 2 or 3 years. And we purchased the equipment, if I'm not mistaken, in December of 22.
Correct.
So obviously in December of 23, the year-end taxes were coming up. And after speaking to an accountant, we went from 92% to 93, I think it was between 92% to 93% increase from 23 to 22. So we got our return on our investment in 1 year, not 2, not 3, but in 1 year. And it just, I'm blown away. I think back about how you said it was going to play out, and it's played out just that way. Now, what I like about going forward is, obviously we made a big splash with all the new Arsenal, all the new Rogers, but now for the next couple of years at least, we can sprinkle in 5, 4, 6, 8 new pieces and make it look like a whole new gym again.
For me to get a phone call to hear someone almost doubled, gives me cold chills again, unbelievable. Almost unheard of in the industry for somebody. Like I said, this is an OG gym. It's been here a long time. It's like my gym's been 17 years old. It's really hard to take a gym that's older and double the business. It's already doing good. Scott was happy with the numbers. Yeah. The deal is we can always, in my opinion, make something better. We can all be better humans. We can learn from one another. And so I always tell people, I told the gym owners around the country, and maybe what's working in Arizona, we're not doing in North Carolina. Yeah. So of course, me and him communicate, Scott, what's working in your gym versus my gym? So for me to hear a 92, 93% increase, unheard of. And so at this point, what I'd normally recommend to a Scott, and he's already got it down pat, now you can coast a little bit and you can sprinkle in. Maybe this year Scott calls me in a few months and we're gonna add 4 pieces. There is nothing wrong. An Olympic bench is not changed, but maybe Scott just wants to change color to black.
Yeah.
Honestly, y'all, when we just changed colors in here, tell them how big a difference, in my opinion, that made.
Oh, it's huge. Well, you're giving your gym a whole new look. We've talked about just the colors on the wall. They have been this gray for some time, and you've said, Scott, look, we need to make a change in here. It doesn't necessarily always have to be buying new equipment.
Oh, absolutely.
Throwing a ton of money at it.
Daniel, who's filming us right now, is big on black walls. So when we get off the phone, or get off camera real quick, we're gonna probably make Scott paint when we leave, just because this year we're gonna do something at this gym again, not because Scott needs to, because he has seen what can happen by doing little touches. But I wanna preach to everybody, you don't have to redo your whole gym. Making small dents in something over time create big results. And that's what I love about the business, because for anybody out there struggling, it's like, Scott's been there with me. Me and him talked about this. Yeah. Scott has struggled, just like I have. And Scott talked about, a few years back, do you think gym owners just get stagnant? And it's like, oh, Planet moved in my town, Workout Anytime moved in my town. Yeah. I remember talking to Scott back in the day when Workout Anytime coming to town. And Scott, I don't think they necessarily took your business, but I do think that probably slows down signups because people want to try out the new location like a new restaurant.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, just again, I'm old school, been in the industry for close to 30 years now. I got comfortable.
Sure.
And not that I wasn't doing okay or making a living, it was just I got comfortable and just kind of got set in my ways. As my competition moved into Asheboro, I got more consumed about them than I was myself. And I think that's when you and I actually met, and I started by, 2 or 3 pieces at a time, making some small changes. But then, like I said, we opened Randleman, and I just knew something had to change here.
Sure.
And then you and I talked, and you said, Scott, what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of your old members back. not only are they going to come back to you because there was nothing wrong with the facility, but they're going to catch wind that you've updated all of your equipment with new state-of-the-art things like the Rogers pieces, the Arsenal pieces, and it's just going to take off.
So what people don't realize sometimes, by doing the small things, you're going to create a word of mouth within the gym, within the community. That word of mouth is going to lead you for free advertisement for, I mean, Scott, what would you say, a year?
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
Scott had the momentum. Me and him would be talking 6 months later after we redone this gym, and he was like, man, they're still, and his numbers just kept increasing.
Yeah.
And that's really mind-boggling.
Yeah,
because
like I said, we went from about 150 check-ins. It was then, we got up to about 200. Then I saw it getting about 250, and now between both locations, we're seeing 700 to 750 check-ins per day.
Guys, that's a lot of check-ins.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, I'm like, listen, the proof's in the pudding on the check-ins.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead,
But I
Scott.
just never saw the amount of people coming back that we lost. And then obviously with the buzz going around Asheboro that we've just put in all this new equipment, it was free advertising. And people were just coming in. They were getting daily passes, which turned into annual, yearly memberships. And, there again, I think you have to surround yourself with the right people. You got to have a great manager. You got to trust in that manager, and they got to put people in around them to make you successful.
And I'll tell everybody this too, and I'll probably close with this. Retention is the name of the game in business. Keeping a customer base, meaning like Scott wants to retain his members. I want to retain Scott as not only a business client, but a friend. And so people don't realize if you can maintain your people, there's been members of my gym. I know Scott has members here that have been literally here 20 years.
24 years.
That is amazing. So if you can maintain them, what I call that is baseline. And if you can maintain whatever your number is, if it's 1,000 members, you can maintain baseline. If you grow from that, you just never want to go below that baseline. But so many gym owners, I hear this all the time. They say, hey, I can't afford to do this. You're already missing the boat on what you need to do, because if you can put in a few pieces of equipment that is going to make those customers happy, to bring in more people, because what people love today, they don't love tomorrow. So a person who signs up has good intentions today, they may not want to come tomorrow. And that's where you're constantly having loss. So you constantly have to keep adding value and getting more people in, because we're playing that game back and forth. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. Look, I love these people like family. So it's very emotional for me to be able to do this, not only for a friend, but a client. And then Scott, tell them a little bit about Nautilus, where they can find you, the 2 locations, website, things like that.
So we've got, like Steven said, 2 locations. We've got the Nautilus here in Asheboro, North Carolina, as well as the Nautilus in Randleman, North Carolina. They're about 17 minutes apart. Both locations are 24 hours. If you want to check us out, you can just go to nautilusfitness.com, Asheboro location, Randleman location. Like I said, we got 2 great locations. Steven's been a good friend of mine now for 15 years.
I feel like we've known each other forever, but I think probably from the first time equipment, got to be something like that.
But if you are a privately owned gym like I am myself, and you are wanting to make a change, get up with Steven. He will take you on as a client, he'll become your friend, and you can trust what he does. He's not just trying to sell you something, he's trying to make you better.
So if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. And then if you have any questions, make sure you drop them in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.